Hello, today I'm going to be talking about some things that you will want to remember when using a sewing machine, especially in the studio here at Cal State LA. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is backstitch. Now backstitching is super important because you're going to be using this in every single secure stitch you create. So basically every piece of fabric you make for something you plan on wearing should be a secure stitch secured with a backstitch. So you're going to find the back stitch handle right here, and basically what you're going to do to secure a stitch is you are going to start off a regular stitch like you would, and then as soon as you get a few stitches in, you're going to back stitch to the beginning of that stitch, and then you're going to let go and then let this stitch run on through. And then when you get near the end, or as close as possible to the end, you're going to want to backstitch again. So stop before you get to the end of the fabric. Press down on the backstitch lever again. A few backstitch stitches, and then you're going to stitch forward. And when you do a backstitch, you want to make sure that you're not more than about half an inch away from the end of the fabric. You want to be able to get as close as possible to the end of the fabric before you do your back stitch, and it only has to be about 3 to 5 back stitches, even that's pushing it a little bit, and then come back. Same thing with the front. You only want to get about half an inch down from the beginning of your fabric, go back up to as close as possible to the beginning of your stitch, and then just keep going down. And then hit as close as possible to the end, go back a few stitches, and then run it over like a normal stitch. And that's how you backstitch. Another thing that will happen to you a lot is that you will have pins placed in your fabric, and you want to sew to make sure that, the fabric will stay in place while you're sewing. However, the thing about this is that if the needle of the sewing machine accidentally hits the pin, then it will more than likely break. So what you'll want to learn to do is sew, but take out your pins while you're sewing. So for example, this case where we have a pin near the beginning of the fabric, which will most likely happen, make sure to press your foot very lightly on the presser foot. You probably want to do this anyway to get a more secure or a more stable stitch, but go very slowly. And even sometimes if you want to hand crank it, you can, but let's say we'll go very slowly. And make sure to take out your pins before they hit the needle. So go again with the second needle. Slow and steady. And then even right here is a perfect spot where you can just take out your needle. I was cutting it kind of close before, but here, right when it sort of gets close to the foot, then that's a perfect place for you to take it out and continue sewing. So just be aware of that when you sew with pins in your fabric. Now, just in case your needle does hit a pin and break, or for any other reason, because needles can be sensitive and they can break in different ways, I will teach you how to replace the needle on the sewing machine. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to see this screw, right? I'll get the thread out of the way so that you can see. This screw right here, I'll bring this closer. This screw right here is what you're going to use this screwdriver for, and you're going to unscrew this screw right here because it is the thing that is holding the needle to the machine. You know, the old righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, and it's not going to take very much force to get it out. So I recommend always having a hand on the needle when you're unscrewing it because there's a total possibility it could fall into the machine right here, and that would not be great. So once you have it out, you're going to take it and you're going to check the number on the side. It might be very small, but you're going to want to check. It'll most likely be really small on this side, and the camera doesn't want to focus, but this is a 16. So a 16, an Oregon 16, Oregon is the name of the brand of needle, and then 16 is the number. So usually, yes, on this side, you can see a little bit, but it says Oregon here and 16 here. So 16 is the size and Oregon is the brand. So let's get an Oregon 16 so that we can replace the needle. So now I found a pack of Oregon needles, but we have our Oregon needles, and then right here it says 16. So that is going to be our needles. So I'm just going to grab one from here and we're going to use it to replace this needle. So here I have our brand new Oregon 16 needle. So now that we have our new needle, we're going to put it in its respective place and make sure that, so you see that the needle you have there's kind of a side to it that dips inward. So there's a side that's completely rounded off and cylindrical, and then there's a side, this side, that dips in a little bit. You're gonna wanna make sure the part that dips in is facing toward the machine. So the same way you would thread through the curved side and through the dipped side, that's because the side with the dip is always facing towards the machine, and the cylindrical side is always facing out. Here we go. Put it into place right here. Beautiful. And then we just use the same screwdriver to hold the needle into place, and then just screw it back on like that. And just like that, your needle is good to go. The last thing I wanted to address in this video is how the machine is expected to look when you leave the studio. So the first thing I wanted to remind everyone is to make sure your machine is always off when you leave. And even when you get up to do something, for example, if it's on and you have to go grab something or iron something from a different room, just make sure for safety purposes that it's off. And it's just that quick and simple. You know, and so whenever you leave for good, make sure to turn it off. And the way you would know is just the light is on, when it's on, and when it's off, it won't have the light anymore. We also want to preserve parts of the machine. For example, the needle. You might have seen on your needle or your needle resting on a piece of fabric like this. And to make sure that you preserve the needle, I'm going to put the piece of fabric underneath the foot and then hand crank the machine so that the needle is in the fabric, resting on the fabric. And then lastly, you're going to take this brown cover that you see on pretty much all the machines and make sure that you fully cover the machine before you leave. This is because dust getting in the machines can affect it tremendously. So we gotta make sure to cover our machines, leave the needle in a piece of fabric, and make sure that the machine is off so that we can utilize these machines as best we can and have them for as long as possible. So that's about it, and have fun sewing.